They were kind of trading their crosses and Bible studies for seances and crystals, and I think we were seeing the trauma of that continue, and really this become a rising issue.
The church is under siege, not only from the outside, but also from within. Pagan practices like witchcraft, crystals, and even reincarnation are creeping into the pews. And Pastor Lucas Miles says it's time to draw a line in the sand. His brand new book, Pagan Threat: Confronting America's Godless Uprising, is a wake-up call to believers to stand firm against a culture of compromise. Lucas is the senior director of TPUSA Faith, a pastor and a best-selling author, and he joins us tonight with a powerful warning for the church. Lucas, always great to see you. Hey, when people think of paganism and threats to the church, they say, of course, it's the atheistic, secular left. But you say within the church, we've got this threat rising. That may be hard to believe for some people, but it's very real. You lay it out in the book. Tell us about some of the troubling trends that you've seen, again, within the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 1.5 million people in the country that consider themselves pagan today, and that number is expected to triple. But what we also have is we have a lot of soft paganism, that is what I call it, that has entered into the church in a lot of different ways. For instance, a lot of people don't know that the Enneagram, a popular sort of personality profile, the founder of it says that he developed it by what is known as automatic writing, basically contacting a spirit guide or some sort of demonic figure in order to get the information and to make that personality profile. We also have a lot of Christians that are using things like burning sage in order to clean spaces of evil spirits, and participating in things like horoscopes. I was recently on the Strip in Vegas doing man on the street videos, and about half the people that told me they were a Christian, when I asked them what happens after you die, about half of them said they also believe in reincarnation. So this is the state of the church, and I'll tell you, it's a major problem.
Lucas, you're a pastor. You do a great job. How did this happen? How do we get to this point where, again, people, you write in the book, even using tarot cards, reincarnation, as you mentioned, how do we get to this point as the body of Christ where people are so misled? Is it just a sign of the times?
This is a major factor, especially for Gen Z, which also known as Zoomers, and millennials. And, really, if you think about this, in many ways, they're sort of the Harry Potter generation. They grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. We had, Netflix shows that really, pushed a lot of these ideas. They also went through a lot of trauma. School shootings were massively on the rise for this generation. They kind of lived through, especially the older, millennials, they lived through September 11th. And I think that all of that combined has caused them to start seeking alternative sources for truth, maybe outside of what they felt like were some of these Western norms. And so they were kind of trading their crosses and Bible studies for seances and crystals. And I think we're seeing the trauma of that continue, and really this become a rising issue.
Wow. And Lucas, you make a great point. The supernatural themes of so many TV shows and movies today, even music, it's everywhere for younger generations. Generation Z is an interesting test case because on one hand, as you said, they're off some components of that generation, off the rails and dabbling in what you're laying out. But also we see some encouraging signs that Generation Z may be having a sort of mini revival, buying Bibles. What's your take on that? Are you encouraged by that?
Yeah, so I am encouraged and also cautious at the same time. So, my work with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and TPUSA Faith, we are seeing especially young men, come back to the church in tremendous numbers. The comparison between young men today and their boomer counterparts is the first time that young men have been more conservative than their boomer counterparts. But there's a concern there, especially among young women. And this is not to say that all women fall into this category. But when you think about the role models that are available for young men today, there's a lot of conservative figures. It's the Joe Rogans, it's the Jordan Petersons, the Ben Shapiros, the Charlie Kirks that are out there When you look at young women, it's Beyonce, it's Lady Gaga, it's some of the political figures like AOC and Kamala Harris, and I think Sabrina Carpenter and others, and many, especially these female pop figures, which I go into the book in detail, have identified with witchcraft. They talk about carrying tarot cards in their purses. They talk about their utilization of crystals. Many of these female pop stars have boasted about how they have an alter ego that takes over their personality, kind of describing sort of this inner spirit that they have when they go on stage. So much so that one of them actually has a name for that individual and says she has an 8-year-old boy stuck inside of her body that takes over when she steps into the spotlight. These are the role models that young women have had, unfortunately, and I think that is having an effect on this generation in many ways.
Lucas Miles, be sure to follow him, of course, on X and across social media. Lucas, you and I sat down about 2 years ago, I believe, and talked about one of your great books called Woke Jesus. Well, in Pagan Threat, you write about the direct correlation between wokeness, this insane ideology we see right now sweeping across the Western world, and paganism. Break that down for us a bit.
Yeah, anytime we talk about wokeism, it's really just another way of saying a Marxist framework. And that critical theory, Marxist worldview has attached itself to so many areas of our society. I've spent the last several years really looking at detail at the effects of wokeism on Christianity. I've written 2 different books about it, as you mentioned. But what I think we're seeing is that Christianity is not a long-term vehicle for the parasite that is Marxism. Eventually, you're either going to push into Marxism more and take on that anti-God framework and leave Christianity, or you're going to push into Christianity more and you're going to recognize that Marxism and the gospel are antithetical to one another. But what is happening is that Marxism has found, that parasite of Marxism has found a new host. And that host is this neo-pagan revival that's taking place. There's not a lot of conflicts between Marx's worldview and, say, witchcraft, or Marx's worldview and Wicca, or Marx's worldview and some sort of, theosophy or some other, esoteric new faith that's popping up. And so what we're seeing is that Marxism and things like the LGBT movement have attached themselves to where we have now, you can pick up books on queer witchcraft or some sort of critical framework to paganism. And so I have unfortunately spent about the last year reading a lot of these books. It was some of the most depressive reading I've ever done. My nightstand had a lot of scary titles on it. But this is massive. And I think a lot of people are not aware of it. They're not talking about it. You open up TikTok Live and you will find this intersection between paganism and Marxism happening very strongly. And it has deeply influenced our younger generation. And I think that we have to be aware that wokeism has shown its true colors, and they are in fact pagan.
Yeah, it's evil. And you write about this in great detail in Pagan Threat, Lucas. 2 things before we close. Number 1, optimism with President Trump in office. Look, he's speaking openly about faith. We've got a faith office in the White House. And number 2, real quick, prescriptions to turn back this pagan threat. You've got it throughout the book, but share some real quick for us.
Look, I've been to the White House a couple times this year, and I can tell you there's a lot of movement when it comes to faith, and I'm very encouraged and very optimistic about where the nation is heading as a whole. But on an individual level, within our local communities, we still have a lot of work to do. And so what I recommend in this book, I actually have a 7 kind of fold strategy for the church in America at the end of the book, but I'll give you just a snippet of that. First off, I think that we have to return to primary doctrine. There's so many Christians that have just forgotten the basic tenets of the faith or never learned them. We need to come back to really understanding the core tenets of the faith so there's no confusion about what Christianity is. I think also we need to leverage technology. It is easier today to do evangelism than ever before. All I have to do is pick up my phone and go out on the street and say, hey, I'm a content creator. I make videos about spirituality. Can I interview and talk to you a little bit? And you would not believe the type of open doors that can happen as you're creating content that you can share with millions of people and also ministering to somebody individually one-on-one. The church has a lot of work to do, but there's more opportunity than ever. But we have to be very aware of what this real confrontation that we have between goodness and evil in the form of paganism today if we're going to be ready for it.
No doubt, Lucas well said. It is a spiritual battle, but there is a great harvest out there right now, and you're at the forefront of that, my friend. Again, the book is called Pagan Threat. You can pick it up Amazon.com, wherever books are sold. Lucas, great job. God bless. We'll see you again soon. Stakelbeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget, to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.